Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My Shopsmith is due for some oiling of the sheaves, and we're going to do that in today's video with some 3-in-1 oil and a couple of screwdrivers. So stick around. Okay, so before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. I also have a Patreon page. You can jump over there and you can become a patron of Wood Resurrected. And there are perks and benefits you can see on that web page. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to have to do before we can get inside the case to get these, it's 2 points that we're going to be lubing. And we first need to remove our drive hubs. And then once that's done, we can remove this rear case and actually get to the lower sheave that's mounted on the motor. And then I will show you, but there is a cover on the back side here that we will remove, and then inside of there is the upper drive sheave that's on the spindle here, and that is directly controlled by your speed control. And that actually has an arm on it and a bearing. You wouldn't really think it's a bearing because it doesn't really look like it and you can't really see it, but it is indeed a bearing, and if you fail to lubricate that could seize up or break off, and then you no longer have speed control of your Shopsmith. So that is a crucial thing that you want to keep lubricated. And I don't remember exactly what the lubing interval is. I usually do it on occasion. I kind of go by feel. It depends on how much you use your Shopsmith. I would say every 50 hours is probably not a bad idea. Obviously you can't over lube it. So it's better to err on the side of caution and lube more than not enough. So let's get started. This back cover has a screw on either side. So once we get these hubs removed, we'll pull those screws and we'll get the back cover off. And I'll also show you inside of the headstock here where we want to lubricate on that bearing. So these drive hubs are essentially sleeves that slide over your drive shaft. And all you need to remove them is your standard Shopsmith Allen wrench. And let me turn this so you can see the fastener here, and that is on both this top one and on the bottom one so that you can get that cover off. So we'll just pull that off real quick. It's a good idea to make sure these are nice and tight when you install them. They do have a flat spot so that this Allen screw will secure that on the shaft. So we're going to remove that one and the other one. So the other thing to notice especially with this 500 is that this drive hub has a shoulder on it, whereas the lower one does not. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you're taking them off and putting them back on. So it's the same procedure for the lower one. This one's a little closer to the headstock, but you should be able to get on it and get it broke loose. And of course the screw goes on the back side when you put that back on. And when you put it back on, you want to try to not have it up against this screen here. Otherwise it will slowly chew through that. Alright, so we got both of our drive hubs off. So now all we have to do is remove the 2 screws for the back cover. And let me zoom in here. So we got this screw on this side and then one on the other side. So this is I want to say it's like a 60s model Shopsmith 500 series, Mark V. If you have a different model, you may have other screws that you need to remove in order to get this back cover off. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, so we're just going to remove this one. And these do have nut plates that clip onto the back side here, so they can potentially slide off when you remove this cover. So keep that in mind and watch out for those pieces falling out, because you don't want to lose those, otherwise you won't be able to get this cover back on. And then it's just a matter of wiggling it, and there we go. So you can see the clip right here that's on this, so you want to make sure that stays in place as well as the other side. So here is the back cover that I was mentioning earlier. You may have a screw that you have to pull out and then it swivels up. Mine is just a spring-loaded cover. So all it's got is this bracket that goes across the back side that holds it on there, and then you got 2 guide slots on either side. All right, so I'm gonna use my screwdriver as kind of a pointer. So here you can see it's got this clip that goes around the outside, and it's got what looks like a spring on it. That's basically for wear and tear against this clip here. And this clip you can see is spring loaded. So in order for that to come off, you'll have to push that down and come back. But you don't have to take that off for this procedure. I'm just kind of explaining it to you. And you can see the gears back here. So when you turn your control, your speed control, what that does is that pulls this arm in and out, and it extends this, or opens up this pulley, which works with the spring-loaded pulley on the bottom to change your speed, basically just like the gears on a bicycle. So this cylinder here is where we're going to be oiling it. And I'll need to rotate that a little bit. There's a hole in the back side here, so let me do that for you. There we go. Should be able to see the hole there. And it's easiest to do with if you've got a tube oiler, something that you can run the oil down a tube and right into that hole. I am going to be using this screwdriver that I have in my hand, and I'm essentially going to be putting the oil on the screwdriver and letting it run down into that hole. I'm going to be using 3-in-1 oil. It's a multi-purpose oil. You can use it to lubricate these bearings and sheaves. So essentially, get that in there. Whoop. There we go. And you could even rotate that up a little bit so that it's straight up and down. And one thing you weren't able to see that I did just now was I took this screwdriver and I lubed up the shaft of it so that when I put the oil on it, it'll actually run down. It won't have any spots that it has to get past. And that's probably way too much. But I'd rather have it over-oiled, as I said before, than not oiled enough. So I'm just going to reach in and wipe off any excess that we had running on there so that it doesn't spray all over. And that's how you lube the upper sheave. Okay, so here is the lower sheave. This is the one that is directly on the motor. And you can see the front cover here has this cover on it. And what we want to do is we want to get it to where the spring is exposed and opened up. And by doing that, we'll open up the access to be able to get to the oiling port for the lower. And you can do this 2 ways. Essentially what you want to do is you want to speed your Shopsmith up so that this pulley is compressed so it slides together this way. And to do that, you have to speed your Shopsmith up. So you can turn it on and spin it up, or you can do it by hand. I'm going to show you how to do that. You have to be kind of delicate with it because, as you may know, it's not a good idea to just turn your speed control without the motor spinning, or I guess you could say the spinning parts moving. So to get this to open up down here, I'm going to turn this shaft, and you need to make sure you turn it towards you. That is the standard operation for the Shopsmith, is the top of your shaft will turn towards you. So you want to do that. And then, let me get this out of the way real quick. There we go. So mine's on slow, which is why this is as open as far as it is. So when it's on slow, the lower pulley is really far apart and the upper pulley is really close together. So this one has, what that means is your motor has to spin multiple times in order for the top one to make multiple rotations. When it's on fast, it's the other way around, which is what gives you your speed. So I'm going to turn this as I'm turning the machine, and I'm not turning this speed control unless this is moving. So for example, if you've got it off of the Shopsmith itself, if you've got the headstock out, that's where this procedure comes in handy. Because then you don't have to worry about plugging it in or anything like that. Let's see how far we can go with it. There we go. So if you go too far, it will bind up a little bit. So you want to stop at fast, just like with your standard operation. So what I did is I spun this bottom by hand because it loosened up. It looks like it actually bound a little bit. But we've got the speed all the way up, and you can see this spring down here is extended. All right, now I'll get you in closer so you can see the actual hole, which is just like the one from the upper part. Okay, so with that sheave completely together, that opens up the spring as I was mentioning. And if I turn this, you can see, let me grab my screwdriver. You can see right here that oiling hole is. So I'm going to do basically the same thing I did on the upper one. I'm going to rotate that so it's up, and then I'm going to run some oil down and into that. Alternatively, if you want, I believe that you can get the nozzle on your oil to go into that, and if you have enough oil in your bottle, you should be able to get that oiled without having to use the screwdriver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here with the bottle and get it to drip right into that hole. And I'm not even really squeezing the bottle itself. So there we go. I think that was, I think I did about 4 drops on that one. Let's do 5 just to cover all the bases. There we go. All right, so we got both the upper and the lower lubricated. So what I'm going to do is the same procedure as I used to actually get the lower sheave to compress. So I'm basically going to turn this, and then I'm just going to slow it back down. And I'm going to do that a couple times. So this is the direction you have to make sure that you do plenty of spinning, because if this speed control turns hard at all, you're going to start breaking stuff. So all you want to do is just keep spinning it and spin it all the way back down to slow. And you can see that spring on that lower sheave with the motor is compressing, which means that that pulley is being forced open by the upper sheave through tension on the belt. So we're almost there. And there we go. And we'll give it a few spins just for the sake of it. So you can see we're back to the slower speed. As our speed control indicates, we made sure that everything was spinning so that both the upper and lower sheave could compress and decompress. So the upper sheave, when you're going from fast to slow, the upper sheave will get closer together, which pushes the belt further out on the diameter. And your lower belt gets, your lower sheave opens up to allow the belt to be closer to the inside. So now that we have the upper and lower sheaves oiled, all we have to do is put our cover back on and then put our drive hubs back on as well. So I'm going to slide this down. I'm lifting this up so it doesn't grate on the weigh tubes. Might take just a little bit of wiggling. And then we can just run our screws right back in here. Make sure they're decently snug. You don't have to Hercules them down. Just as long as it's good and snug. And I'll do that for both sides, making sure that this cover is nice and tight. There we go. And that's, the back cover is back on. So what I usually use when I put this lower drive hub back on here, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put, you can see the flat spot is up on top, so I want to put the screw up there. And all I'll do is take this fairly narrow screwdriver and just give it a little nudge. So I push it all the way on, and if it doesn't come into contact with your vent, you should be all right. But if it does, you can just use a screwdriver to just nudge it out just a tiny bit. And then you can leave that screwdriver in there when you tighten it up. And that'll keep it from sliding back in as you're tightening it. That might be a little too close. I might have to use the screwdriver method for mine. Let's move it out just a little bit and then tighten it. There we go. Yeah, you will hear it if it'll sound like a grating sound if that's making contact while you're running. And then same procedure for the top. I'm going to put the flat spot up and slide this one all the way on because there's nothing to worry about on this side. There we go. All right. All right, so we're gonna put the back cover back on. Simple process. You just slide it in, line up your pins, and then push that top spring down a little bit, and it'll pop right in there. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to plug it in, and all I'm going to do is let it spin for a little bit and kind of get everything decently lubricated. We are on the slow speed, so nothing to worry about there, and we'll let it spin for us a little bit. And then I'm going to run the dial all the way up to fast and then all the way back down to slow to make sure that everything gets lubrication across it. And there we go. So thanks for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, don't forget to leave them in the comment section below. Hit that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to swing by the Patreon page and become a patron of Wood Resurrected. So once again, thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time.